So, as I said, what I want to do over the next 20 minutes or so is talk about BIM in the building life cycle and how we're expanding BIM to transform the industry, architects, engineers, contractors, and owners, as they all start to transform from traditional ways of working to a BIM-based workflow. And I think, again, when you look at that video that Emma showed, it really shows just how compelling our technology is and the depth and breadth of our technology. And in many ways, it really can't be matched across the industry. Finally, I'm also going to talk today about how we're enabling teams to work better together, which becomes an increasingly important topic as our design teams, our customers' design teams, are spread across the globe. Okay, so what's our strategy? Let me talk about our strategy. But before I talk about our strategy, I want to talk about what's driving our strategy. There are several components to it. First and foremost, demand for BIM. We see it everywhere. In many ways, BIM is the price of entry. It's the ticket to get to the dance. And we're hearing that certainly from architects. We're hearing it from engineers. Now we're hearing it from contractors. And the owners are saying, if you want to come to my dance, you need to be BIMing. You need to be using BIM. You need to be delivering, providing BIM deliverables. So demand for BIM is very, very high right now. As Rick mentioned this morning, there's an explosion of data. As more and more project team members, more and more disciplines come online, there's an explosion of information. And so that's really driving our strategy and our priorities. Mandates, both from a government perspective and from an owner perspective. So you pick up the paper any day and you read about these government mandates that are being introduced throughout the world. For example, the European Union, the Building Energy Directive requires now that by 2019, buildings are supposed to be net zero energy. That same directive says that commercial buildings, new commercial buildings, must be carbon neutral by 2019. I mean, that's an incredible directive. And that is going to drive and demand the use of technology like BIM to deliver those projects according to the directive. Owners are also demanding BIM. We see it every day. What's interesting is the owner's demand for BIM started out around design and construction. So we had owners saying, I want my design teams using BIM during design and construction because it allows me to better understand the project, better predict it, better manage costs. What's been interesting is as these owners embrace BIM during construction, they're now starting to say, okay, but wait a second, what can BIM do for me during operations and maintenance? Because after all, 80% of my costs are tied up during, really come from the building operation stage while the building is operating. So that's driving owners to mandate the use of BIM. You're going to hear Mark Strassman talk about construction. But the bottom line is the contractors across the globe are driving the industry to building information modeling. Why? Because for the contractor, it's about margins. And with BIM, they can better predict cost, they can better understand the schedule, and overall, they can understand the project, how it comes together. They can reduce the amount of waste. So contractors are significantly driving BIM. And then finally, technology. Technology is playing a huge role in how the industry is moving to BIM. Things like cloud computing, mobile computing, are creating new opportunities for us and, in fact, new opportunities for our customers. So all of these things are the drivers to our strategy. So let me talk a little bit about our strategy. Our strategy in the building group is really about expanding the footprint of technology across the building life cycle. So we started out, as many of you know, we started out focused on the architecture segment and focused on design and drafting. We quickly expanded to structural engineering, then over the last couple of years to MEP engineering, and of course to the contractor segment, to the owner and operator segment. We're continuing to invest across that entire life cycle. We continue to invest in new design technologies, but we also continue to invest in analysis and construction, and I'll talk about those things in a minute. And when we look at this life cycle, obviously we're focused on new projects, but we're equally focused on renovation and retrofits. You heard Jay talk this morning about the importance of the renovation and retrofit market. Let me just throw a few facts out at you. In the US alone, $400 billion, it's predicted to be a $400 billion market over the next 20 years. Think about it. Renovation and retrofit in the US alone, over the next 20 years, a $400 billion market. And worldwide, when you think about worldwide, there's 200 million buildings worldwide that are candidates for renovation and retrofit projects. So what that means is that creates a huge opportunity for us. It creates a huge opportunity for our customers. But when I get to the 2012 release, you'll hear, we have to do different things in our products to support the renovation and retrofit process. And we'll talk about that. So, I talked about the drivers being important to our strategy, and they certainly are. But, most importantly to our strategy is the time that we spend with customers. A couple of years ago, I really started an initiative in my organization for my team, for my broader organization, the teams responsible for developing Revit, Robot, designing, developing, product management. I really put an initiative out there to make sure that we stayed close to the customers, that we got close to the customers. And the reason, because I grew up in a development environment. And, you can get kind of behind those four walls in that cube and kind of forget who you're working for. And so I wanted to make sure that my team understood that at the end of the day, the reason why we're here, the reason why we're successful or we fail is because of how we service the customer. And so you can see the quote from Bouygues. And this is stuff that I love to share with my team. Right? They love the 2012 product releases, and they feel like they were very involved. Now, that's a really compelling statement and an important statement because that's what I want to make sure that we're doing is servicing the needs of the customer. And Bouygues, of course, is a strategic customer for us, a huge customer based in France. And, we're going to continue to work with Bouygues and many others as we build out our products. OK, so you heard Richard earlier talk about the building design, talk about the suites, our suite strategy. Let me tell you a little bit about the building design suites. I think it's a really compelling set of products that we're releasing to our customers. It really is, I think for the building customer, it's about having access to the right tool at the right time throughout the process. It's about giving them maximum return on investment for their investment dollar, which I'm sure we're doing. It's about taking advantage of the interoperability and consistency that we've built into our products over the last couple of years. Clearly, we have more work to do there, but we've made great strides in terms of making sure that our products interoperate, and there's some consistency so that somebody that's working in Revit architecture today can actually work in 3ds Max Design tomorrow and do so successfully. And it's making sure that we're giving our customers access to this wide range of the technology that we have and that you saw in that video from Emma. So the building design suites, I think, are really compelling and really exciting for our customers. And the discussions that I've had with our customers certainly reflect that. And I'll talk about one of our customers later on in the presentation. But let me talk about what's inside the suites. So we have 3 versions of the suite. Much like you saw with on the infrastructure side of the business, we have Standard, Premium, and Ultimate. The Standard suite is based on an AutoCAD, it supports that AutoCAD-based workflow. As Richard pointed out, still very prevalent in our industry. It's a big industry. And while BIM is, really catching fire throughout the globe, in some parts of the world, it's much more advanced than others. And so we need to continue to support those AutoCAD-based workflows, and we'll do that. And that's really what the Standard suite offers. The Premium suite moves you up to building information modeling. Still provides you that AutoCAD-based workflow, which is important, but delivers the Revit platform, obviously, the Revit products, and also delivers 3ds Max Design. Now, at lunch, somebody asked me, yeah, but why would you put all 3 Revits in the Premium suite? Who is going to use all 3 Revits? There's many use cases. First and foremost, when you think of small design firms, right, that really have to do a little bit of everything. We want to make sure that we support them. When you think of this building, for example, right? So you look back here, you look at some of the structural elements, you look at some of the MEP elements. Those elements were actually modeled by the designer, by the architect. Why? Because in many ways, they're architectural features as much as they're building system features. So that user wanted access to some MEP capabilities as well as access to Revit architecture. There are some markets where there isn't an architect involved. If you think of some of the industrial design work that gets done, much of that work is driven by a structural engineer. However, he still needs access to Revit architecture features that are not in the structural product. So I believe there are a lot of use cases. And oh, by the way, the most important use case I shouldn't forget is the contractor, right? Today, contractors are using all three versions of Revit, Revit architecture, Revit MEP, and Revit structure to model all systems of the building, all components of the building. So there are a lot of use cases. And by the way, this has been confirmed. If we, obviously we take a look at where our products are sold to today and who's using them, and we see many, many instances of 2 or 3 different versions of Revit sitting on that same desktop. So I think it's very compelling. Okay, back to the suites. So the Ultimate Suite obviously takes the Premium Suite and the Standard Suite and really adds, additional value, really targeted at the contractor by adding Navisworks, QTO, and Inventor. And it's targeted at the contractor, but it's also targeted at the fabricator. Now, what's really exciting to me is the idea of having Inventor in that suite. And I know some of you are saying, why the heck would you put a mechanical design tool in an AEC or in a building suite? The answer is pretty clean. Bottom line is, as more and more parts of the building get prefabricated, the need to get to that detailed level of modeling around prefabricated elements and components is critical. We already have customers in the AEC space using Inventor. And as we continue to work on better interoperability and better consistency across the products, I think we're going to see that go up. What's exciting to me is 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't think you could have imagined selling Inventor into the building industry or having building industry customers using Inventor. But that is absolutely changing, and I'm confident it's a trend we'll see continue in the future. So I think we have 3 really compelling products here in our suite offering, and I think it's, these things are going to get really widely accepted. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about today's demonstration before I talk about Revit 2012 and Robot 2012, some of the great things we're doing. So the story you're going to hear today, the demo you're going to see today, is based on a true story. It's an Audubon Center in Ohio. And it's owner-driven. The owner really wanted this project to be a model for sustainable design. Our customer, by the way, is the design group. So it's a real project. And you're going to see the design team. As you're watching the demo, think of the design team as an AE team, as an AE firm. And they're coming from that perspective. So they're going to take you through the process. They're going to show you a lot of the great new features of 2012. And I think you'll find it very compelling. But before we get there, let me talk a little bit about 2012, because it's a really compelling release. First and foremost, you heard Jay talk this morning about point clouds. He showed you some point cloud capabilities. Really, really compelling. So last year, for our customers that wanted to use point clouds in Revit, they had to go through AutoCAD, bring those points painfully into Revit, and then start converting those points into models. A painful process, but it worked. What we've done this year is we're providing the ability to bring point clouds directly into Revit and allows the user to quickly start modeling based on those point clouds. Now, when you think about the opportunity I talked about in renovation and retrofit, one of the key components of renovation and retrofit is you really need to provide a way for customers to capture existing conditions quickly. And point clouds absolutely provide that capability. The second major area around modeling that I want to talk about is MEP. So over the last couple of years, we've really overinvested in our MEP business. And I think it's timely because the MEP engineers a couple of years ago really started to get some pressure to move to building information modeling. And then they put pressure on us to make sure that our products were mature enough and ready to help them get there. And the good news is the products are ready, and the customers are moving, and they're excited. I think if you talk to MEP engineers, they really get the vision of building information modeling, and they see the opportunity not only from a modeling perspective, but from an analysis perspective as well. In fact, our MEP business last year had experienced double-digit growth. So, you know, the trend is happening. The MEP engineers, which were in some ways the last group to move along, they're moving for sure. Analysis. So, you know, Emma in the video she showed a lot of analysis capabilities. So, you know, we're really answering the demand that our customers have around analysis, building analysis. So, of course, in September we introduced CEA conceptual energy analysis with our subscription release. We're moving that into mainstream Revit in 2012. So some great opportunities there for our Revit customers to, you know, to get engaged in conceptual energy analysis earlier. The other thing that's really exciting that we introduced about four or 5 months ago was Project Vasari. How many of you have actually checked out Vasari from Autodesk Labs? Rick, I hope you did, since your team's responsible for it. But anyway, if you haven't checked out Vasari on Autodesk Labs, I really, really encourage you to do it. It is a very, very, very compelling conceptual design and analysis tool. And so in 4 months, we've had over 12,000 downloads. It's one of the highest, you know, most downloaded products on Autodesk Labs. We're really excited about the technology it delivers. Let me talk a little bit about structural engineering for a moment. So another area that we invested heavily in over the last couple of years, and like our MEP business, experienced double-digit growth last year. So in 2012, you'll see a much highly improved analytical model in Revit structure. And what this does, ultimately what we want to do with our structural business is we want to enable structural engineers to move more easily to structural analysis. So we want to remove those walls and those you know, the difficulties for a structural engineer to actually move along and do some structural modeling or structural analysis. Likewise, we want to enable our customers that are using robot analysis but may not be using Revit structure, we want to enable those folks to move to Revit structure more easily. So our investments around the analytical model help us get there, and you'll see some other things from us as the year unfolds that help us get there as well. Another major area of investment for us around the structural business this past year is around concrete reinforcement. So huge, huge demand for that capability in Revit structure, and we've invested and we're delivering it in 2012. The last thing I want to talk about here is the Revit platform. So we've invested significantly over the last couple of years to really build out the Revit platform and to really strengthen the Revit platform. We did a lot of work around performance to really improve performance of large models. We also have invested heavily in the API and in exposing the API. Many of you will remember, Martin, you'll remember, I mean, it was, you know, like 4 years ago that you were beating me up for saying, where the heck is the API on Revit? So we've really advanced the API. The API is really maturing. You know, 20% more things are exposed in this release than in the previous release. We're seeing more and more third-party partners come online every day using the Revit API to build on top of Revit. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen as we unfold 2012 and what our partners will do. I think we're going to see some great, great technology, some great third-party applications on top of Revit. But, you know, don't take my word for it. These are some quotes from some of our customers from our beta group, but also from our gunslingers. Now, many of you who have been here in the past have heard me talk about the Revit Gunslinger program. What the Gunslinger program is every year around the December, January timeframe, we bring in a large group of customers. We bring in a group of MEP engineers, a group of architects, a group of contractors, a group of structural engineers. And we ask them to bring real design data with them. And we put them in a room for a week with our developers, with our product managers, with our designers. And we ask them to use that data, that project data, on the new release, before the release ships. And the purpose is, you know, the purpose is really to get feedback in terms of, are there any significant issues? Did we have any big misses? And to really get some insight into where we need to go next based on what we're delivering. From the customer perspective, it's really powerful because for the customer gets early access to the product and allows that customer to really go back and plan accordingly for what's coming in the next set of releases. So the the Gunslinger program is, to me, it's one of the most effective programs we have that we run all year to really, improve our relationship with our customers. Because, for our development organization, it is so powerful because they're in the room, they're standing over watching somebody use the feature that they developed. And there's nothing more powerful than that if you're a developer. So, and I think our customers love it because they get to understand the thinking in terms of why the heck did you do it this way? And in fact, in many ways, are able to say, maybe you should have done it this way instead. So it's a great, great program, and it's something you'll continue to see us do as we move forward here. So let me talk just a moment about building construction and the construction modeling capabilities that we've created in Revit and that we're delivering Revit 2012. So, for the most part, we've been focused on, design intent view of the design, if you will, over the last couple of years. But, as we've stretched into the contractor community, it's very clear the contractor wants different information, wants a different view of that information. They want an as-built view of that information. So think, as an example, an architect may specify an 8-inch exterior wall. That's great, but the contractor needs to understand a lot more information and define a lot more information about that wall, right? The contractor needs to interpret that as-built information and turn it into design intent information and turn it into as-built information. And so with Revit 2012, we're delivering a whole set of construction modeling capabilities that allow the contractor to start to create that as-built view. Ultimately, what it does is it allows the contractor to gain greater insight into the information that is coming from his design team. So again, I think we've had some great feedback from our beta customers and from some of our gunslingers around the construction capabilities. My colleague, Mark Strassman, is actually going to come up later this afternoon and talk much more detail around what we're doing in the construction business. So I think you'll find some great things happening in construction for AEC. So when I travel around the world and I talk to customers, it's very interesting to me how the conversation has changed over the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, it was, the questions were, when are we getting this new feature in Revit? When's this capability in Revit going to be supported, et cetera, et cetera. The conversation has turned now. The conversation goes more like this. All right, we're moving to BIM. We've moved to BIM because the contractor we're working with has moved to BIM. The owner's mandating BIM. The architect has moved to BIM. So we're moving. We think we know how to get there. But how are you going to help me manage all this information? This massive explosion of data, if you will. So data management continues to be a huge, huge requirement, or is becoming a huge requirement for our customers. And I'll put it around the broader wrapper of data management and collaboration. So the need to share information becomes more critical in a global economy, obviously, in a global business. So what we want to make sure we're doing is providing the capabilities for our teams, for our customers to work better. So obviously, over the last couple of years, we've done work on Revit Server. We introduced Revit Server last year. We've done a lot of work around work sharing enhancements. We'll continue to do those. In fact, there are additional work sharing enhancements in Revit 2012. We're also introducing Revit as Citrix Ready in the 2012 release. And so what that means, the customers that are using Revit can actually use Revit in a Citrix environment to access information, access their projects remotely. And so it creates a lot more efficiency for our customers and, more importantly, flexibility for our customers. You heard Rick talk earlier about BIM 360. I think BIM 360 is really, really exciting. And I think the opportunities that presents for us are really, really powerful. So one of the things you'll see in Revit 2012 is integration between Revit and Vault collaboration. And it's the first time these products have come together. We have a lot deeper plans ahead of us, but we're excited to really introduce that integration between Vault collaboration and Revit as well. So more to come there, but I think BIM 360 is as Rick pointed out and the video showed, it's really what our customers have been asking for, and I'm excited about delivering that capability this year. I wanted to take a moment and talk about IFC, because IFC is something that comes up. In fact, if I don't talk about it now, somebody's going to ask me, so I'm just going to come out and, Lakshmi, I know you're going to ask me, so I'm just going to come out and answer the question now. So, we continue to invest in IFC. As you know, Autodesk was one of the founding members of IFC, and so we do continue to invest. In Revit 2012, where we invested further in both the import and export capabilities of our IFC translator. And the reason why is we are seeing more owners demanding or specifying IFCs. And what that means is that AEC professionals or building professionals are expected to do more with IFC. So we want to make sure we support them. I think the most important thing we've done around IFC for 2012 is on the export side, we've actually, we've moved the export IFC capability outside of the API. So what that means is that customers and third parties can actually take IFC and tweak it to meet their needs. Which, those of you that know IFC, everybody's got a slightly different flavor and a slightly different way in how they use it. And so by opening it up through the API, I think we're better enabling that community to embrace it. And net, we want to help the broader IFC community, and we think the best way to do that is by opening it up more than keeping it behind our firewall. So some good progress in IFC, and we'll continue to invest in IFC. Okay, so you talk about collaboration. Obviously, today, in today's world, when you look at the technology available to all of us, collaboration goes way beyond desktop applications. So think about mobile devices, right? So, last year, if those of you that were here will recall that I talked about future technology. I talked a lot about mobile applications and what we were doing. And so, here we are a year later. We've had 1 million downloads of AutoCAD WS. We've introduced Buzzsaw Mobile, which is a really cool application that, that allows design teams to access project information from their mobile device. And as Rick Rundell likes to say, it's a sexy new buzzsaw. So we're excited about Buzzsaw Mobile. We've had great feedback from customers on it. And obviously, we've got a lot, there's a lot of other things going on around mobile computing, and you'll hear more from us in the future. So this morning, Jay talked about this customer, ICA. So ICA is and it's actually spelled ICA, but it's pronounced ICA. I was corrected by ICA directly. So ICA is the largest construction company in Mexico. They're based in Mexico City. They were here about 2 months ago. They spent a week with my development organization, showing us what they're doing with the technology, and telling us where they'd like us to go with the technology. It was a great week. It was a really powerful week for the development organization to see and feel and learn how our customers are embracing the technology that they're upstairs building. So, when I think of the building design suite, and you talk to ICA about, what the building design suite offers them, it's very compelling for them. And they say, it gives us access to your full portfolio. And when they were here, before we talked to them about the suites, they're telling us about all the technology they use. Talking about all 3 Revits, talking about 3ds Max Design, talking about Navisworks, talking about Buzzsaw, talking about Inventor, talking about our sustainable analysis tool. So